Hello, Garland Nixon here. It's Sunday evening, and there's one or two things going on. We've got the war expanding in Israel. Israel's taking a bloody nose. The usual assassination attempt on Trump, and more. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. How are you? Don't forget, got my Patreon stuff. If you can donate to the channel, that would certainly be a great help. Got some big things planned for the future. All right, let's get going. Let's get started. Let me see if I can start right here. So one of the things that's going on, if you recall, hold on, let me find the darn Here we go. Let me find the article. No more German military hardware for Ukraine, according to Bild. Good old Bild. Germany has no more military hardware to offer Ukraine beyond what has already been pledged, even as Kiev remains hard pressed by Russia on the front line, Bild reported on Saturday. According to the outlet, the German Defense Ministry does not believe that Ukraine will be capable of launching an offensive to liberate its own territory, you think. The report also said, citing an internal document, that Berlin would no longer send heavy weapons to Ukraine and that deliveries of this type of aid have been completed. The term applies to tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, blah, 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 blah. In addition, a supposedly new $1.53 billion military aid package let's see, that Olaf Scholz recently pledged, in fact, refers to commitments promised and paid for last year. Yes, I'm going to give you $153 billion, and you can thank me because I gave that to you last year. We're going to just go in backwards and just say that $153 billion that I gave you in the past, we'll just call it square, right? So what's happening here? A couple of things. And that is, I think a lot of people are looking at polls. A lot of people are reading the tea leaves, and they're looking at I think there's a lot of that going on in Europe right now. There's a number of factors that they're looking at. Number one, it's fairly obvious that the inevitable defeat of Ukraine is rapidly coming upon us. So I think that, they could play as long as they want to, that Ukraine's going to win. It's going to take back Crimea, blah, blah, blah. But of course, it was just a matter of time before that fiction fell apart. And that fiction is falling apart. And Ukraine's getting smacked around pretty much on the front lines right now. And there are rumors of more Russian offensives. The Russians, as usual, as seems to be their style of military operations, don't seem to be in much of a hurry. They're just going to tear the foundation out from under the Ukrainian military till, I guess, when they get finished, there won't be anything there. So that's going on. You can see what's going on the field. That's part of it. You've got the issue here, which is number one, Trump's looking strong. Let me just say this. Let me go right to, and this is part of the Ukraine conflict, the Ukraine discussion. So I guess I might as well go right there. Trump's looking pretty strong. And I tell you what the indicators are. Who knows? There are polls. And as I've said before, when I was in the mainstream media, I talked to people who owned and controlled these polling companies. And basically, in case you didn't know, it goes like this. You take a poll. Let's say whoever's paying you, the Democrats, the Republicans, whoever's paying you, you take a poll for the most part, right? And if the poll doesn't say what you want it to say, you keep taking a poll until it does. So, if there was a poll that said the Democrats were paying for a poll and it said Trump was up by 10 points, you can forget it. That poll would never see the light of day, right? So you've got, the mainstream polls. You've got the polls that people see, right? And then you've got internal polls. You hear them talking about internal polls, and that's what they try to get as accurate as they can. And one of the things we're learning about the internal polling, well, I'll put it like this. How can you tell what the internal polling is saying? Easy. Look at the actions of the parties, of the action of the people who are, acting on the polls. So if you look at the Democratic Party right now, They're doing a couple of things. Number one, they're sending Barack Obama out to scold black men. Why would he scold black men and tell them to vote for Kamala Harris? Well, he told us why in his latest rant, where he said, I'm hearing that you guys aren't going to vote for her. Black men aren't going to vote for Kamala in large droves like you did for me. Excuse me for yawning. And we got to do something about that. That's, basically you bunch of sexist scumbags. You don't want a woman, and shut up and do what you're told, right? Well, it didn't go over real big, because like a lot of people, black men that aren't voting for Kamala, to be quite frank, it's because they're working class people. And as working class people, they have seen their economic situation significantly deteriorate over the last 4 years. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Trump's going to fix it, but I'm just saying that they're looking back saying, hey, it was better under Trump. So I'd rather go in that direction. I mean, it's a very practical way of looking at politics. And I mean, it's not unreasonable. And so all of the Obama scolding in the world ain't going to bring down the price of freaking eggs. And you're talking about people who have families to feed, and they're just thinking it from a personal perspective. So my point being, Obama's out there scolding black men for not voting for Kamala, and that tells us that the internal polls are telling us black men ain't voting for Kamala and the kind of numbers they need to win. The Democratic Party also now is going after Jill Stein big time. They are spending millions on advertisements. Let me see if I can do this to go after her. Now, why is that? Let me look at the news and see what it says. They're freaking out. There we go. Here's an indicator that I think you need to look at. You can search this stuff yourself. They're spending millions on an ad. DNC ad says Jill Stein is a spoiler candidate trying to help Trump regain the White House, right? That's what she's trying to do, right? A television ad released Friday by the DNC in battleground states, Michigan, blah, 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 makes the case the campaign of Green Party presidential nominee Jill Stein is a spoiler candidate who seeks to help Republican nominee a return to the White House. Also, we will look at these things are of consequence when it comes to this whole Ukraine thing, to be quite frank, and we'll look at this. Here we go again. We will share screen. All this is related. All this is definitely related to Ukraine. Abandoned Harris Group endorses Jill Stein over pro-genocide candidate Kamala Harris. Group accuses U.S. of backing Israeli project of Palestinian annihilation. Okay, so what are we looking at? How does that get back to Ukraine? Because the European leaders are looking at the same indicators that I'm looking at. They've thrown themselves headfirst into the Ukraine project, and I think they understand that though the Republicans are imperialists and warmongers and American exceptionalists and all that kind of stuff, that ain't their war. That's the Democrats' war. It is not theirs at all. That Trump has really opposed it, not been thrilled with it. That Trump, for whatever reason, I think Trump is a guy who can be very transactional, and he sees politics from a different perspective than the blob, shall we say. Not this is not a defense of Trump. It's just saying he has a different perspective. And I think Trump, when he looks at the European conflict, he's like, what does it cost? What are we making out of it? It's more of a business kind of view. And clearly it ain't his. And the Republican Party, though they are also the party of imperialism and warmongering, all that kind of stuff. However, the voters are moving in the direction of what's being called right-wing populism. I don't care what you call it. All I know is what's going on. So you can use whatever words you want, but clearly the majority of the Republican Party is going with Trump. They like Trump on an I would say they like Trump on a cultural basis. They like Trump on a personal basis. And so I think if Trump was like, yes, I'm 100% behind the Ukraine conflict, that most of his base would be, to be quite frank. But because Trump's like, nah, that ain't mine, that's Biden's, then his base is going to more than likely oppose it. So I think the European leaders are looking at Trump saying things are starting to look like Trump might very well win, and we better be prepared. And so they're preparing themselves to deal with Trump. Now, there is one faction, and you can see that, and it's a weak faction. Well, it is a powerful faction that fears that they will weaken in European politics, and that is the neocons that all want to, double down on everything all the time. And I think they still want to hang on, but I think there are a lot of more practical people in the ruling elite in England who are saying, if Trump wins, we got to deal with the United States and we got to deal with Trump. And this whole Ukraine conflict, we better be ready to look for an exit ramp. We better be ready to, um, we better understand that Trump's not motivated to put money into this, and that we don't have the money and we don't have the military supplies to support it. So we're gonna have to start thinking about how we're going to deal with this. At first, they started thinking about how to Trump proof it. You saw that discussion going on in Europe, right? How can we make sure that money keeps going there, that weapons keeps going there, that even though Trump comes in, and then I think they're starting to be more realistic, and they're starting to say, you know what? If Trump wins, we can't. We don't have the money. We don't have the wherewithal, and Trump's going to abandon us and say, "Oh, fine, do whatever you want with it, Ukraine. It's yours. See you. Bye. Have a nice day." Right? So the other part of it is, I think a lot of them are seeing the, multiple um, natural disasters that have befallen the southern part of the United States, back-to-back hurricanes, and an unbelievable drenching downpour that went through parts of the South and absolutely just wiped stuff out. And a lot of billions are needed. And unfortunately for the Biden administration, that hit at the same time that they were sending like $8 billion for Ukraine, $8 billion for Israel, and like 600 million for Taiwan. So at the same time, people were suffering, saying, "How can you help us?" They looked up, and Biden had just announced all of this money going overseas. Well, let's just say that didn't go over real well in the United States. Didn't go over real well for obvious reasons. Bottom line, the Israeli ruling elite, they're reading the tea leaves. Trump might win, and it looks, some would argue, probable. I don't know. But Trump's looking strong. The Democrats are getting weaker the closer we get. Harris is not. I mean, come on. If they don't get Muslims, if the Democrats don't get Muslims and black men, they're in deep trouble. And what happens if these Muslims, and now a lot of them are going to vote for Jill Stein, a lot of the Muslims, but you have some of the black men are voting for Trump. I'm not judging it. People can do whatever they want, but you got a lot of black men probably, I think, that's voting for Trump for a number of reasons. Okay. So bottom line, they're looking at it saying, how do we get off this train? So as Zelensky starts showing up, he's finding doors slammed in his. I need weapons. They're like, yeah, we're fresh out of weapons, bruh. He's like, I need money. They're like, yeah, we gave that to you last year. We'll give you $1.5 billion last year. Spend that. What happened to that $1.5 billion we gave you last year? You snort that all up your nose, you freaking cokehead? No, sorry, pal. We can't help you. We got things to do. And there was an old song by Public Enemy called "I Can't Do Nothing for You, Man." Right? And the words started off, of course, what's his name? Flavor Flav, and he said, "I can't do nothing for you, man. I'm too busy trying to do for me." Right? Hey, look, man, that's what's happening now. That's what Zelensky's running into. The Germans are like, and the Europeans are getting the heat from their people. It's getting cold. People are like, hey, we need our subsidies for the winter, and they don't have the money to give it to them. And everywhere throughout the U.S. empire, the people are saying to the rulers, I want you to sing that Flavor Flav song. I want you to say, I can't do nothing for you, man. I'm too busy trying to do for me. What's in it for me? So the pressure is really bearing down on the ruling elite to take care of their own, which they don't do. the pressure is really bearing down on the ruling elite to prepare for a likely new administration that um, is not going to be interested in the Ukraine conflict. That's putting it. That's being charitable. In reality, I think it's personal to Trump. I think Trump is pissed off about RussiaGate. I think he's pissed off because he got um, uh, um, he got attacked over a phone call about Biden being crooked in Ukraine. All of those things have left a terrible of taste in Donald Trump's mouth, and he wants to get off of the elevator going up to Kiev. And Zelensky being left, as you know, I don't have to tell you, he's between a rock and a hard place. If the Russians, they want to throw him in jail forever, and of course the extremist in Ukraine certainly may do him physical harm if he decides that he wants to negotiate with Russia. So he's in. My prediction is within the next couple of months, Zelensky's getting the hell out of there if he can't alive. He's going to have. I mean, let's face it. Let's be honest about this thing. Practically speaking, that's Zelensky's only move at this point. Zelensky, if he's smart, will be thinking about how to negotiate his way out of this mess. And I mean physically out, not negotiate his country out of this mess, negotiate his ass out of this mess alive. How about we go to the further the better for him. If he's wise, I think at one point Israel might have been an option. That might not be the safest place either right now. So I think he's probably thinking about going to southern Florida with Juan Guaido, and maybe Juan Guaido teaches democracy at Florida International University. So I think, or Florida Atlantic, one of them. Whatever the case, I think that with all the money he's one good thing though he has, and that like with all of the hundreds of millions of dollars that he's stolen from U.S. money, he won't have to work ever again. Him and his wife, she'll be able to buy multi-million-dollar cars and jewelry, and he'll be able to wander around in a green olive drab suit and mutter with that weird voice he has. And I guess his move is get out of there alive. So that's that. As far as Ukraine's concerned, it is how do we get out of this, right? That's the leaders of Europe. How do we get out of this? And I mean, even Keir Starmer, the people that wanted to do the long range strikes, I think they've thrown in the towel. I think they realize that the U.S. is really focused on the Middle East right now, and the U.S. is like, we don't want any extra trouble in Europe because we don't have the wherewithal. We don't have anything. We're over here, man. We're done with that. I mean, they're dealing with the folly of the neocons, where the neocons start wars everywhere, and when this one starts going bad, they're like, yeah, man, that's so less. That was summer of 24. Ukraine was really the summer of 24. Now it's fall. We're moving into winter. We're like Middle East now. We're like, who's Ukraine? Who even does that anymore? That's where they are. They're going to do, as I said years ago, they will soon be exercising the Samsonite option, where they pack their bags and get the hell out of Kiev. And they say to the Europeans, deal with it the best way you can. And the Europeans are going to be dealing with massive refugee problems. There's going to be millions of Ukrainians flooding out of Ukraine, heading out into Western Europe. God bless you, Western Europe. Things ain't going to be pleasant. Meanwhile, if the war in the Middle East expands in an ugly way, there will be tens of millions of Middle Easterners on boats heading over to Europe. They'll be coming from the East. They'll be coming from the West. They'll be coming from everywhere. So Europe, you think you got... Here's the interesting thing about it, and that is that the refugee problem in Europe now is from a combination of many years of colonialism and that kind of stuff, and the overthrowing these countries, taking these countries in, and then saying it's part of the French or British Empire, and then those people were citizens of the French or British Empire, whatever the case may be, and they could come back to their home country, as it were, right? You're dealing with that. Then you destabilize the countries. You're dealing with that. Now, if you've destabilized Eastern Europe, you're looking at a mess coming from there. You're looking at a mess. I think this winter is going to be a freaking mess in Europe of Ukrainians showing up, especially if the war starts to fall apart. But for this reason, I believe that when this thing starts to fall apart, because of the enmity within and the instability within politically and culturally within the Ukrainian land itself, that there'll be some kind of a civil war. There'll be fighting there. There will be people who want to say, look, let's go ahead and make a deal with the Russians and let's get this thing over with so we can get back to a normal life. There'll be people saying, no, they are lesser beings and we must continue fighting for the Reich, right? So the extremists, so you're going to, and a lot of arms. So I think at some point you're going to look at some kind of an internal conflict. And of course, what happens there? More people will flee from an internal conflict as it spins down into more destabilization. The only people that will be able to stabilize it at all are the Russians. I have always said I believe when this conflict ends, the Ukrainians are going to be furious at the Americans and the Brits and the West for getting them into this mess, and they're going to have no alternative but to turn to the Russians and say, help, can you help us out of this mess? And they'll be the only people that can provide food and electricity and heat and all of the things that they need. They won't be able to get it anywhere. And they're going to be furious at the Westerners, and they're going to be well armed. So you're going to deal with some terrorism as a result. But we're getting closer to that. I also think the Russians understand that they don't have to knock all of, and it's kind of interesting. They don't have to knock all of the the Ukrainian electrical infrastructure out. Leave a little bit. And I think it's intentional. If they knocked it all out, everything just falls apart and kind of collapses. And not only that, if you knock it out, think about this. If you're the Russians, if you knock out all of the Ukrainian electricity, all of their infrastructure, and the Ukrainians walk up to you and say, you got me. We don't know what else to do. We can't fight anymore. We don't have electricity. Here, we'll sign off on an unconditional surrender. Okay, but you've knocked out all their infrastructure. Now you got to try to rebuild it. You got to try to, okay, we're sorry. We're trying to work out a deal. We'll sign off on something, but you got to get our electric plants back going because we're all going to freeze to death and die. Well, then if you're the Russians, you kind of got to try to get them back together, right? So I would imagine that the Russians, to some extent, if I'm in charge, if I'm the Russian military, if I'm the Russian political powers, I look at Ukraine and I say, we would like to cripple their electrical grid, but let's look at what we're hitting so that we cripple the grid by hitting substations, but we don't hit the main power stations. That way, if we have to come in and rebuild and turn this thing on in a hurry, we just rebuild the substations. We don't have to rebuild full power stations, and we can get them up and going again. And I would have a plan right now for getting them up and going so that if they throw in the towel, put up a white flag, and they say, we want to negotiate, we're out. And we say, yeah, here's what we'll negotiate. Number one, you're going to surrender. Number two, we'll turn your power back on. You surrender and all of the things that come along with that, you sign right here. But you're in a world of deep and serious trouble. You got no power. Your people are freezing. They're all heading west. We'll turn your power back on. And then I say to the West, look, Ukraine's ready to sign off. Here's what we need to do. One of the things we're going to do, we're willing to do out of the kindness of our own hearts. Now that this war is ending, we're willing, you're going to have to drop sanctions. You're going to have to do this, this, and this. But we're willing to turn the power back on in Ukraine. Because if we don't, you're going to have 10 million Ukrainians flying across that border into your countries. Do you really want that? We can turn the power back on in a matter of, 15, 20 days, 30 days. We'll get most all of their power back on. We already have a plan for it. We already have all of the equipment that we need. We just systematically knock things out, and we know what we knocked out, and we know what we need to turn it back on. So sign up right here on the dotted line. The sanctions are over. This is over. That's over. And we turn it back on. So you give the Europeans a way out too. You give everybody a way out. Always, when you're in conflict, always give your adversary a way out. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War, right? Don't box them in. And give them an opportunity to get out with dignity, to get out with feeling like they won something. They got something. Give them something. So we'll see what happens. But at some point, this Ukraine thing's going to collapse. And I think there's a superpower on Ukraine's border, and that's Russia. And that's going to be the only ones that can bail them out and bail um, Europe out also, because Europe's on the way down the toilet economically. So the bottom line, that's it with Ukraine. That's where we are right now. The end is near. And the other part of it is this. With the twin hurricanes, with the anger that people have, it's going to be very, very difficult, dare I say, impossible at this point for the U.S. to go back to that well again in Congress, for the U.S. to go back to Congress and say, look, here's the plan. We're going to, we need another 100 million. We need another 50 billion, excuse me, billion, 80 billion for Ukraine. At a time when, I mean, you can just go on YouTube and just look up Asheville, North Carolina, look up Chimney Rock, North Carolina. I don't know if you've seen that crap, right? It ain't pretty. Okay. It is not pretty. Let me see if I can find you something real quick in case you haven't heard, bro. Let's see. Give me 1 second here. I'll find it. Let's see. The problem with YouTube, it's terrible. If you search YouTube, right? The only thing you get, they will only give you like mainstream news. You can't get all of the other stuff that you want to get. You get this crap. Let me see. So let me just give you a little peep at what might be upsetting these people. All right, let's take a look. I mean, you can't, you can't. That's Let me tell you something. That's good. That's the good part. That No, that's not the bad stuff. Yeah, that's more like how the bad stuff is, and even far worse than that, right? It is just, you know, it is a absolutely flipping disaster. So, it looks like, just a moonscape all through um Florida, particularly Western North Carolina and Tennessee in that area, a friggin' disaster. So, bottom line, I mean, widespread destruction, major thoroughfares, major highways completely wiped off, taken off the side of the mountain. The whole towns just ripped to pieces. Ripped to pieces, where you're not going to be able to fix it. I saw one thing where all these telephone poles, like it seemed like miles of telephone poles that ran along the road, the roads were gone off the side of the mountain, and the telephones were just balled, telephone poles balled up in big piles. How long is it going to take to run those telephone poles when there's no roads? The telephone poles are gone, and the roads that they went alongside are gone. And in a lot of these instances, these roads were on the side of the mountains, and everything's just collapsed. So there's nothing to rebuild a road on. So you have a town that had a road that came to it. The road was on the side of a mountain. There's nothing to that town. It's over. There's the only way to get to that town is through a helicopter, and you ain't rebuilding a road. So that town is dead. The only thing you can do is get those people out of the towns. And this is all over the place. An absolute disaster. So what we have is instances where an instance where a significant part of our country has been completely ripped to shreds. And so it's going to be politically impossible for our Congress to take $100 billion, another 50, 20, even 1 billion, to be honest. People are going to scream their guts out if more money goes to Ukraine. It would be a disaster, particularly leading up to this election and around this election time. So politically, I think this Ukraine thing economically and politically has gone just about as far as it can. And now the neocons have pushed it. And as far as they could, I think this thing falls apart. Bottom line, it falls apart. And the Ukrainians are going to be furious at the people that put them up to this. All right. So there's where we are in Ukraine. I think the situation is pretty clear, and let's move on from there. I don't. There's anything else I need to cover? Oh, third Trump assassination attempt foiled. It's Sunday. There's a assassination attempt on Trump. I'm sure, every few days. So apparently they got some guy who was heading to a Trump rally in California, and he had a shotgun, and he had some multi-round magazine or something, and he lied his way to get his way into a Trump rally. So apparently this guy either planned to do a dirty deed on Trump, or at least he wanted somebody to believe that. So another day, another assassination attempt on Trump. So far they haven't been so lucky. Also, as I said earlier, things are looking real bleak for the Biden administration. Muslims, that vote's done. Black males, they're getting at the end of their rope. And so they're I don't know how they pull this one out, losing some very, very significant demographic groups for the Democratic Party. Keep in mind something too. I think this is important. The Democratic Party, what they would argue is this: Black people vote for us because they're Black and this is their party. Muslims vote for us because they're Muslims and this is their party. Like these groups just do it out of identity politics, right? There are some historical context there. There are people who in those communities who truly believed, and I use a past tense, that the Democratic Party was looking out for the working class and the working poor. They found themselves in the working class and the working poor. They also honestly believed that the Democratic Party was about more diversity, looking out for people of color and women more so than the Republican Party. And those were substantive issues that they believed. And I think that's why they voted for the Democrats. Now that they no longer believe those things, all of the "you should vote for us because she's a woman of color," whatever the hell that means, ain't going to work, because that ain't why they were voting for them in the first place. They were voting for the Democrats because they believed that the Democrats were the party of the working class. Now that they no longer believe that, they vote for them. They probably won't vote for Trump. Now, there's some of the Black men are going to be voting for Trump. It'd be interesting to see what those numbers look like. Trump typically outperforms. I would say somebody needs to be ahead of Trump to beat him, because he typically outperforms the polls, simply because, just let's face it, in the Black community, you ask a lot of Black folks, you want to vote for Trump, they'll be like, "Oh no, vote for Trump. Oh, wow, vote for, get out of here." And then of course, behind closed doors, they vote for Trump, right? So you ain't going to see a lot of people that are going to say, "No, I'm not going to vote for Kamala Harris," and then vote for her. The people that are going to vote for Kamala Harris are all like really, really proud. "Yes, we're with her. We're voting for her. Trump's evil, whatever. I'm voting for her." They're very, very proud. But you do have a lot of Trump voters who know they could get heat from friends or family members or people in their social circles. Let's face it, you're in New York, Hollywood, you're going to vote for Trump, and all your liberal friends come up there, they're like, they pull down their mask and they, say, "Look, who you voting for?" "Oh, Kamala Harris, of course. What are you talking about?" Kamala, everybody's voting for Kamala Harris. What a stupid question. And they're like, "Well, then why do you have that red hat on that says 'Make America Great'?" "Oh, this. No, that's not. It's not a 'Make America Great Again.' Uh that's a barbecue joint near where I live. It's the Great American Great Again barbecue joint. It's the whole totally different thing. It has nothing to do with Trump. No, I would never vote for Trump. What a crazy thing." So you got a lot of people who are just like, "No, I'm not voting for Trump." When they get in, they're circling a T. Okay, they're going to circle that T, or whatever. I'm being, facetious here, but you know what I mean. I'll put it like this: they may push a T on the machine, and the machine's going to come up, "Thanks for voting for Kamala Harris." Those of us who trust the machines, if you trust those machines, good luck with that. Me, look, I don't make no bones about it. People are like, "Well, Garland, you voting for Trump or Harris?" And I'm like, "Look, I'm voting for Jill Stein." I feel like, hey, think about this. I'm in a blue state, and so Harris is going to win. If Harris would lose in Maryland, she'll lose every state if she loses Maryland. Number two, which are most states. Most states are either blue or red. So I feel like I want to see third parties get stronger. And so I feel like this is a state that don't matter. Don't get me wrong, matter or not, I never vote for Kamala Harris. Okay. Now, I don't care what state I'm in. I put it like this: if I were voting and it was the last vote and everybody in America voted and they said, "Garland, if you vote for Kamala Harris, she wins. I'd be like, look, that don't even come to me. I'm voting for Jill Stein. Don't want to talk to her. I'm not. That's not my part of the election. I feel like you have to show politicians that there is a price to pay for genocide. I believe that you're involved in a genocide. I believe you got to show them there's a price to pay. Don't tell me the other guy's worse, potentially worse. There's a price to pay for genocide, and my job, don't hate the messenger, is to make you pay that price so that hopefully in the future you'll look and you'll say, my God, we paid a dear price for genocide. Probably not a good idea to do that again. Now, these people are, genocidal lunatics, so I don't think it's going to really, change their minds, but we'll do what we got to do. Let's go on to Israel. So apparently it hasn't been a good day for Israel. Hezbollah apparently hit some military base with a drone attack today. And my understanding is, and there are the claims I've heard are anywhere from 4 dead to 7 dead. But you know how the Israelis are. They usually, I mean, they like fought for the first 4 or 5 months in Gaza and said they lost 2 people. So I'm just saying they probably undercount a little bit. You might want to take that into account. But so the official thing, the last I saw was 67 or 70 casualties. I've seen numbers up to 111, and then they'll say there's seven dead. Well, I find it hard to believe that you had 111 casualties and only 7 dead. I would suspect that Israel is dramatically undercounting the number of dead, probably the number of casualties. There are claims, don't know if it's true, claims. I'm not going to say it's true whatsoever or false. I'm just saying they're starting to surface online that a guy named Herzi Halavi, who is the IDF chief of staff, there are claims that he might have been injured or killed. At this point, you know how this goes. The Israelis have said they killed some Hamas leader a week or so ago when we found out the guy was still alive. So certainly Hezbollah or whoever the claims are claiming that the IDF chief of staff was killed may or may not be true. I'm just letting you know that rumor is starting to float around so you can continue to watch it. I don't think if it was true, the Israelis would come out and say it. If you remember, when the Israelis first killed Nasrallah, in the immediacy, the Hezbollah and even Iran said, no, he wasn't dead. I guess they decided to wait a couple days and see how they were going to, or a day or so to see, determine how they were going to release the information, what position they were going to take. So we don't know if old Herzi Halevi, IDF chief of staff, we don't know if he's alive or not, but if he is, he probably ain't happy because they took a bloody nose. And I knew it was a matter of time, because let's face it, Hezbollah has the ability to hit Israeli bases. They're hitting Israeli bases. And sooner or later, a bunch of Israelis were going to be in a building somewhere, or Americans or somebody were going to be in a building, and a drone was going to come floating in and blow that building sky high. It was just a matter of time before that happened. I don't know if it hasn't already happened, but whatever the case may be, the Israelis have taken a pretty nasty bloody nose on that. We'll see how that turns out. I would expect the Israelis to go on a mad rampage and just bomb a bunch of civilian areas. If somebody asked me, what would your prediction be that the Israelis will do? Well, let's face it, even when they're not taking heavy casualties, they're going on mad rampages, bombing civilian areas and slaughtering civilians. So my guess is they're going to do what they normally do, is they're going to, apparently they've said something to the UN or something like, get your people out of Lebanon. So I would imagine they will target civilian areas and like carpet bomb some civilian areas. And I imagine that Hezbollah will continue to hit their bases. And so that will continue. And it seems to me the Israelis targeting of civilian, generally, it seems to me that is what they do in anger. I may be wrong, but it seems to me like in anger and emotion, they just say, well, we got hit. We can go kill 1,000 civilians in response. It appears that way. That's what it appears. And people are still waiting for Israel's supposed response to Iran. Apparently, the United States has put in these THAAD terminal high altitude air defense systems. Let me see this. THAAD news. Here we go. So now this is of consequence. This is of consequence. All right. U.S. deploying troops to Israel with THAAD. The U.S. will deploy a terminal high altitude air defense system and military crew to Israel to enhance the country's air defense capabilities. The move comes almost 2 weeks after Iran launched a ballistic missile attack against Israel. Lloyd Austin authorized the deployment of that blah, 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 and an associated crew of U.S. military personnel to Israel to help boost Israel's air defenses following Iran's unprecedented attacks against Israel on April 13th. A THAAD battery consists of 95 soldiers, 6 truck-mounted launchers, 48 interceptors, 8 per launcher. And now keep in mind something. So you got 48 missiles, right? Now here's the thing about that. As a rule, air defense systems send 2 missiles per incoming target. That means that this THAAD system can handle 24 incoming targets. If you recall, Iran, we've heard lots of numbers, but it seems to me at least 100 missiles were launched, and they have said they'll make it significantly higher. I put it like this: if they launch 25, one of them would get through, apparently. So a combination of the fact that Iran's missiles are often hypersonic, which means they can't be shot down by any of the U.S. air defense systems, and the fact that they can use overwhelming numbers of missiles. They can also use high numbers of drones, right? So what they can do, what the Iranians can do, is send in 500 drones, 150, 200, 300, whatever number of ballistic missiles, overwhelm that system very, very easily, and hit whatever targets they want. So what that means is this. What that really means is this. I mean, let's be honest about it. You're sending this system with 100 people, 48 interceptor missiles, right? Knowing that the Iranians will likely, if they come in, they're going to fire minimum, let's just say a minimum of 100. And some of those actually kind of do like a starburst. Some of them, when they get near the target, they burst into 8 or 16 different warheads that then go after individual targets at different speeds. So the bottom line is this: you're looking at a couple hundred targets, 48 missiles, 24 targets is all it handles. You know good and damn well that this THAAD system is going to do nothing whatsoever to stop the Iranians from hitting any targets they want, which means, think about this, logically speaking, neither of us, neither you nor I, are military experts, air defense experts, right? Nor are we mathematicians, but we can count to 48 and understand that if you fire 2 missiles per target, that means you can only shoot down 24 targets, and that ain't gonna get it done, right? Considering the fact that the Israelis have their own air defense system, which haven't been very effective, and apparently when the Iranians last attacked Israel, some of those missiles were bear right down on some of the Israeli air defense systems. So they lost some air defense systems then. Now, okay, here we gets us to an obvious question. This raises an obvious question. All of us, including Joe Biden and the U.S. military, and all of us know that sending this THAAD system is going to do nothing to defend Israeli airspace from an Iranian attack. So the question has to be, if we know that it doesn't protect Israel, then why are they sending it? I'll give you a couple of possibilities. Speculatory, but I think they're deductive logic. The logic has to take us in this direction. Number one, kind of for show, right? So you can say to Israel, look, man, we're going to work with you. We got your back. We got you covered. So you can do that for PR purposes, right? Yeah. And people can look, ooh, man, they sent this THAAD system now. The Iranians better watch out now. Maybe bluff the Iranians a little bit, which of course it ain't going to. If you can't even bluff me, and I know nothing about military equipment, God knows you ain't bluffing the Iranians, but you'll bluff the people who are watching this thing, right? These civilians that don't know any better, they're going to get bluffed to think you're doing something when you're not really doing anything. They do a lot of PR stuff, so I think that's it. But let's add in something else. And this is a cynical reality, I believe, and probably more likely. Look, the Biden people want to get involved in this thing. There's neocons that want to get more involved in military, the military conflict in the Middle East, but they don't know how to do it because they know the American people ain't happy about it and don't want it done, right? So how could they convince the American people to get in? How can they do it? Let me think. If a bunch of American soldiers were killed, perhaps they could say to the American people, hey, doggone it, they killed some Americans. Now we're going to go in and fight. Nobody kills Americans. The eagle's claws are coming out, and we will rake our claws over the evil ones who have killed Americans. Now, I'm cynical. Have you ever heard the term speed bump when it comes to South Korea? That the number of troops that the United States has in South Korea is not enough to do anything to slow the Koreans up, to stop the Koreans from, if the North Koreans wanted to attack South Korea, they would flatten Seoul. And likewise, our troops that are like in the middle of the city of Seoul would be likewise flattened too. And that's the speed bump. You put them there so that the enemy kills them. And once the enemy kills those troops, then you can say, oh, you're going to get it now. And that's like a trigger to allow us to get into a war, right? If you think about it, it's like some of the troops that you put there and say, I'll put my troops there. So if you kill my troops, I'll use that as the speed bump. It'll slow you up a little bit, maybe, but it'll also be a tripwire. So when that goes off, doggone it, I can say, we're going to fight. You're going to get it now. You killed some of my troops. So from a cynical perspective, I do believe that the U.S. government, the Biden administration, is cynically placing American troops in harm's way, hoping that the Ukrainians, the Iranians will fire missiles, that our troops will all get killed, and they'll have the excuse that they want to enter into conflict in the Middle East with at least some help, push, some American people saying American troops have died, now we got to fight. Right? Which would mean, if you think about that, I don't know that it's true, but I'm speculating. But if that is true, man, you ain't got much value on the lives of American troops. If that is true, and I don't think it's, looking at what the neocons have done, I don't think it's crazy to think that. Recently, there's these islands called the Komodo Islands. They are 2 kilometers from the Chinese mainland. The U.S. put military guys there. 2 kilometers. Can you imagine that? You could swim. I could row there. I could, like, if my boat ran out of gas, I could paddle, to 2 kilometers there. So, a small group, couple groups are there. The Chinese could have just said, oh, to hell with that, and killed them all. There's nothing you can do to defend them. They're not there to be defended. They're there as a tripwire. So somebody kills your troops, and then you say, you're going to get it now. You killed my troops. And then you say to the American people, well, we got to go to war. They killed some of our troops. How cynical is that? I'm just saying, if you're in American military, you might want to get the hell out and run, because they don't think much of your life. And by the way, I might add, the people entering the U.S. military right now, the numbers are dramatically decreasing. Let's face it, people ain't stupid. And as Clint Eastwood said in The Outlaw Josie Wales, they know something. Dying ain't no way to make a living, boy, right? People they join the military to see the world, which is, if you think about that, that tells you you're an empire. If you join the military to travel the world, you should be able to travel the world if you're joining your own military. But if you're an empire, you can. But if you're a tripwire force, probably not a good idea to join the military. That's called suicide. And that means that your government sees you as an expendable. If this is true, which is possibly, that means that they see the troops as an expendable asset. How cynical. The troops, your own troops, are an expendable asset. I think it's true. There's maybe people in the chat in the chat that disagrees with me, or that Somebody says Garland's an MJ fan. Betcha. Was that Michael Jordan? Oh yeah, I was a big Michael Jordan fan. Are you kidding me? Yes, I was a big. If you're talking about Michael Jordan, I don't know. Maybe you're talking about Michael Jackson. I don't know how to moonwalk, but I did like his music back in the day. I got to tell you, he may have been nuts, but his music was pretty incredible stuff. Really, really, really incredible stuff. Anyway, what are we doing? Let's move on. Let's not get back to 80s music, right? Till Tuesday and Duran Duran and all that good stuff. 80s was great. Sting, how about that? Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Come on, you know. Anyway, I digress. So right now, Israel has got the living snot smacked out of them by Hezbollah. I think they're threatening to do something really mean to civilians. They apparently are still talking with the U.S. about what they will, what they're going to do to Iran, how they're going to strike, how they're going to attack Iran. I think that they understand that this is a big gamble. That I've been saying that if you watch any of my, one of the things that's not talked about by a lot of people, but I've been bringing it up, and that is, look, man, if I say I'm gonna kick your butt and I come over your house and I take a swipe at you and I lose the fight, I'd be better off not to fight than to take a swipe at you and lose the fight, right? Be far better not to fight than to go say brag of how you're going to get it and I'm gonna kick your butt and I come over there and lose the fight. And so the Israelis have been bragging about how they're going to kick Iran's butt and they're going to attack, and the U.S. will help them. Man, what happens if you go in there and you get all your stuff shot down? Missiles shot down, planes shot down. You go after, it could go bad. They may very well go after Iran, and it may go bad. So Israel could be contemplating the outcome, the repercussions of attacking Iran. Because the other thing is, if Iran shuts off their electricity, how do they continue to prosecute their war? And what are they going to do when every damn body in Israel will say, I'm out of here. I'm going to Cyprus. I'm going wherever the hell. I'm getting out of here. We got no electricity. Not a fun place to live. So that's the jam that the Israelis find themselves in. One more thing I got to say. And I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are right now. We're waiting to see Israel, and here's also the jam that Israelis find themselves in. So now they gotta get revenge on two people, because the Israelis kind of thing, as the U.S. rules-based order, you can't touch me. If you do, I gotta smack you down, right? So the Iranians said, boom, gave them a bloody nose. And they're like, we're going to get the Iranians back. Ooh, now you're in trouble, Iran. You're going to get it. You got it coming. Hezbollah gives them a bloody nose. Hey, now it's your boy, Hezbollah. I wouldn't want to be you. Now you're going to get it. The problem they have is they're surrounded. You've got the Iraqis. You got Yemen. Not long ago, Yemen gave them a bloody nose. So what do? They get a bloody nose from Iran, and they go hit Iran. Their noses, it ain't going to get less bloody. Let me tell you, if they hit Iran, bloodier noses. What are they going to do? They can go bomb Beirut and kill. Here's the reality. Even if they go bomb Beirut and they kill a bunch of civilians, the only thing you're going to do is stir a hornet's nest up. They're going to be even more pissed than Hezbollah. They're going to hit more of your bases, and you're going to hit more. So the only thing that Israel can do, they're like swinging wildly in all directions. They're just hands flailing in all directions, just wild flailing at everybody around them because they're surrounded. The bottom line is, it is to some extent a civilizational war. The Muslim world, the Muslim civilization, the civilization of people who believe in Islam, and that's their way of life, feel that they are being put upon by the U.S. empire, that you are the cat's paw for the U.S. empire, and I tend to agree with them, and that they're gonna get theirs. I think they're like this, really. I think whether it's Hezbollah, the whole resistance forces, I think their thing is, you're gonna get some punches in. Fair enough. Big punches in that you can do, but you're gonna get some pain too. And we'll see. Oftentimes, look, a fight comes down to who can take the punches the most. People fight and swing, and at the end, two people are bloody, but one guy can take punches better than the other. And if you get in a fight with a guy who can take the pain better than you, and it's a fairly even fight, that means you lose. Because at some point, you don't want to take any more pain. And if this thing keeps going, wherein Israel keeps getting these kind of bloody noses, and I think they'll increase. At some point they lose, but they can't lose, but they're going to lose. Same with Ukraine. They can't lose, but they're going to lose. They put everything into this. You know, let me end by saying this about Ukraine. When you get down to it, the biggest problem that NATO is going to have, and part of it also is going to be if they attack Iran, and Iran has Russian defenses that are very, very effective against NATO equipment. It's going to be hard to convince the NATO people that Israel using NATO equipment attacked Iran using military equipment, and Iran was successfully repelled it. That Iran attacked Israel using their non-NATO equipment. Israel tried to defend themselves using NATO equipment, and they were unable to do it. So at this point, what we're starting to see is that the effectiveness of NATO equipment, of Western US equipment versus other stuff, it's not all that great. So now it's not just a matter of NATO, of do you have the numbers of air defense systems? Do you have the supply, the numerical military supplies that are necessary to defend or attack or whatever when it comes to Russia, China, whoever? It's, do you have equipment that's effective? And it's becoming increasingly clear that it's not effective. And if they go after Iran and Iran repels repels an attack successfully, well, that's a real bad news. That would be the worst thing, man. I remember what I'm saying. Keep in mind, this is an important discussion. The worst thing that could happen for NATO and its people is that they could attack Iran with NATO equipment, and it could get easily repelled, even mostly repelled, whatever, and it's not successful. Man, that's going to have a big, there will be great consequences for that. And of course, at the end of the Ukraine conflict, when they've been telling everybody in Europe that if the Russians win in Ukraine, they won't stop till they get to the English Channel, and the Russians say, we got no desire to fight anybody outside of Ukraine, get out of here with that, then the credibility of the propaganda arms of NATO will be in great question. All right, let's see. We always get good questions with super chats. Go Ansar Allah, fight the power. There you go. To use a public enemy trope. Ivan said, thanks a lot, Ivan. Certainly appreciate that. Let's keep going. We got a bunch of super chats tonight. Okay, One-Eyed Monkey says, Garland, you make middle-aged waffling into a fine art. Oh, why, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate you calling me middle-aged and a waffler. I mean, I love waffles, but I will have to say I don't do that kind of stuff anymore because you got to put butter and syrup and all that stuff on it. And let's face it, I ain't a young man. I am concerned about the old ticker going. So the things that I used to eat when I was younger, such as waffles and things like that with syrup and butter, oh, that stuff tastes so good. Yeah, but I probably better not do. I'm trying to I got to be healthier now. I already got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel, so I'm not trying to help myself out. Thanks a lot. Make Ukraine rush again, says Sparky. All right, how about we do this? The Sparkster says, don't even leave a patch called Ukraine, lest it remain a NATO playground, a carpetbagger's money laundry, and becomes a Black Rock property. I'm with you. I think that's the Russian plan, Sparkster. Sparky says, make Israel Syria again in these Ottoman Empire days. Levant Jews got along fine with their neighbors, whether Muslim, Christian, or otherwise. You are correct. Where did the Jewish people have the most difficult time? Oh, that's right, in Europe. So not in the Muslim world. In fact, where's the safest Jews you can find right now in the Middle East? In Iran. In Iran. There's a huge Jewish community in Iran, and they are as safe as can be. Unless the Israelis, think about this, they're safe unless the Israelis attack them. The only fear that the Jewish people have in Iran is that the Israelis will attack them. Sparky says, spoil BlackRock's plans, make Ukraine rush again. Yes, sirree, brother Spark. Sparky again says, look on the bright side. Both Ukraine and Israel have U.S.-sponsored help. Yeah, good point. Good point. And disaster relief, man. You talk about somebody getting disaster relief. All right, Vivian says, Obama comment to black men to vote on race Was this brilliant intentional chess game reverse psychology to make KH lose, or was this to help her win? Oh no, it was definitely to help her win. It was definitely the Democratic Party. That's the way they think. They think that they can go just chastise people, that that they can go push against people. They can force you. They start off asking nicely, would you please vote for Kamala? And you're like, apparently a lot of black men were like, no, we can't. They're like, but we really need you to vote for Kamala. A lot of black men were like, yeah, how about no? And so finally they're like, you better vote for Kamala. Shut up and vote for Kamala. You will do what you're told. Do you understand me, sir? And a lot of black men are like, yeah, that's not happening. So that's the game. It's, you know what? Sometimes it's just hard to believe they're that stupid, but they really are. Let us continue. How about, okay. We go with Vivian again. Does Biden want Kamala to lose for revenge? I sometimes think he might. He's a cranky sucker. I believe you are correct. I believe that Joe Biden, not that the rest of the party does, who knows? But I believe that Joe Biden wants Kamala to win because he's pissed because he felt like that he should be able to run, and he feels like Kamala stabbed him in the back, which she probably did. I mean, let's face it, Kamala. It's kind of just that's what she does. Oh, thanks a lot, Conan, the Barbarian. All right, let's go with Edward Bernays. Israel is carrying out the first live stream genocide. Israeli soldiers publish their crimes on social media. When the history of this Israeli genocide of Palestine is written, nobody can say they didn't know. You are correct, sir. Sparkster says, a refugee from the Armenian genocide invented rice aroni, and her boss marketed it in his retail shop in San Francisco. No genocide, no rice aroni. Garland, are you willing to give up rice aroni? Yeah, I am. I am definitely willing to give up rice aroni, the San Francisco treat. Yeah, remember that? I mean, it's like you look when I put it like this, rice aroni. That's one of those, highly processed things where you look on the side of it. Like it's got like 500 different things maltodextrin, 1, 2, 4, 5, yellow, green dye number 12 or something. You're like, what the heck? It's got like the same thing in it as Roundup. So yeah, I'm just thinking. Perhaps rice aroni's not a guy like me. Perhaps I ought to, I don't know, maybe I can eat some broccoli. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to eat healthy. You're trying to take me out, Sparkster. All right. Ivan B says, jazz fan, MJ destroyed my youth. Oh, yeah. Well, Michael Jordan destroyed a lot of people. If you weren't a Bulls fan, when Michael Jordan was playing, you didn't have a lot of luck. Sparkster says, I hope the October 25th BRICS meeting will bring solutions to the Israel-Palestine issue. Some of the BRICS nations and potential BRICS nations may be the only entities which can do anything about it. I hope so also. I think the October BRICS meeting, there will be things going down that will make a difference in international economics and politics. I do also believe that there'll be long-term, powerful reverberations from this meeting for many, many years to come. But right now, I don't think that the Israeli nor the American governments either of them are rational enough to understand the error of their ways. I think they're horrified, frightened, and desperate. So, a wounded animal is a very dangerous thing. Okay, how about we go with James? Thank you, James Starks. Hey, remember the guy? There was a guy that played for the Knicks named Starks. All right. Now, what am I getting into old NBA stuff from the 80s or 90s? Thomas Wolf says, I miss Comrade Jody. She's my favorite guest. Yes. Oh, I love Jody. She's awesome. I could just sit there and listen to her forever. She's so much fun. She has so much energy. She's a blast. And I learned a lot from her and get a lot of historical facts. That's the thing. I love history. And Jody can give you some really inside baseball, as they say, some insider's history. So I like Jody. She's a lot of fun. She has a lot of energy, and she's been busy. She was a week or so ago, I think she had a bad cold, and then she was traveling. So I am hoping that Jody will be back. Let's cross our fingers. The lovely Jody Brar, hopefully she will be back on Friday. Instead of, Sparkster says, of the F-35 Lightning, the aircraft should be called the F-35 Boondoggle. There you go. There you go. And you know what? It's not a plane. It is an economic venture. Okay. History, economy, entertainment, science, tech says, have you seen the major attack on Haifa tonight by Hezbollah? Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, um, Hezbollah has been knocking the bejesus out of Israel. Now, let me just show you, just so you'll know, this is a website I often go to, okay? Um, and it is Al Mayadeen. Let me do this. Al Mayadeen's a good site. You notice this. One of the reasons is it has a breaking ticker up here, and so it is just so people know. If you look at Al Mayadeen, it is pro. I would argue it is pro Iran, Hezbollah. The people that consider themselves the resistance forces. Just so you know, when you go there, yes, it is. I would say pro resistance, or whatever term you want to use, but you'll always get a ticker going across the top that will update you. And then there's a lot of stories. Hezbollah launches sweeping attacks on Israel forces in border towns. Iran ready for war, committed to peace. 3 dead, dozens injured in Hezbollah drone attack on IOF Haifa base, right? Israeli occupational forces. So there's a lot going on. I go to Al Mayadeen a lot, and they give you a lot of good info. A lot of valuable info. I don't know. I can't say that it's true or false. I can't vouch for it, but I can for the veracity of it. But I can say there's a lot of stuff going on there. Uh, So apparently Hezbollah hit like a gathering of soldiers and a bunch of Israeli soldiers. Um, it says its fighters targeted an Israeli soldier gathering with a rocket salvo. And apparently, Hezbollah says the enemy dismissed the resistance warnings and continued committing its massacres, especially in Beirut, southern suburb. But the resistance has decided to teach it a lesson, showing it only a fraction of its capabilities, right? So that's the kind of stuff you get on Al Mayadeen. A lot of comments and stuff from the people that consider themselves the resistance forces. So if you choose to go there, it's take it, as you see fit. I can't vouch for it. But like as I said, Israelis have taken a nasty hit. And I suspect, as is the case, that they have significantly undercounted their injuries. Not that just Israel does it. Let's face it, most major countries underestimate their dead and wounded because I think from a public relations perspective, you don't want to dishearten your other fighters. You don't want to dishearten your population and have them say, holy crap, we lost that many people. I want out. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Israel shouldn't do it. We do not have a plan B. How come, bro? Why? Well, because I put it like this. If you ask a bird, hey, you're flying, aren't you? Yeah. Do you have a plan B if you break a wing? No, I'm an eagle. And if I break a wing, I can't hunt and I die. So no, I don't exactly have a plan B because it's plan A that makes me a bird, the fact that I can fly, right? The US empire does imperialism because it is an empire. It is the nature of imperialism. It's not that they don't have a plan B. It's not that the US empire does this. It's what an empire is by its very nature. The nature of the US makes it what it is, and it's not, what it's doing is not working. It doesn't know how to do another option. It just tries to. It's like a person who yells at somebody, and when the person won't do what they want, the only thing they know how to do is yell louder. Let us keep going. I think that's it. Let's take a look at Rockfin. uh 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 Geo Ha says the Samsonite option. Yeah, that's it. That's what and JM Hat says only Kamala can stab you in the back while serving you. Oh, okay. Well, not around. Okay, but yeah, we're not. I'm not going to go to any X-rated stuff here, but you can go to Rockfin and see what you want. Let's look at Rumble. Maybe there's some Rumble rants. We don't want to overlook our Rumble rants. Let's see if there are any Rumble rants. I want to know what it is. Oh, yes. Well, we got Rumble rants. And at war. says, my fear is NATO is aligning its pieces to attack Russia all at once. It would be impossible for Russia to defend itself from thousands of missiles and drones. Your thoughts? Thank you. Thank you, and it more. So here's what I'll say. No, Russia's not. No, they're not in a position to do that right now. The a number of military leaders and political leaders in Europe have said right now we're not in a position to fight Russia. We couldn't defend ourselves from Russia, right? So they know if they were to attack Russia, that it would just be suicide, that they would get. Then Russia said, you guys, if all you countries attack us, we're going to friggin' nuke you. So they know if they've got missiles, they might as well blow their own nuclear missiles up on themselves because they know good and well that, and they're not in a position to do that. I mean, if they fired some missile salvos on Russia, what would their next move be? They don't have the troops to invade. They don't have the troops to do anything. So it's like, okay, I throw my punch, and then what? You don't have anything to follow it up with. So they're not in a position. I mean, to attack Russia, that would be like a one-time bunch of missile salvos. And then what? You know what I mean? They don't have the military wherewithal to fight a war with Russia, and they know it. And might I add, they know good and damn well Russia has hypersonic missiles, and they don't have any way to stop them. So that any target that Russia chose in the in Europe would be hit. They don't have any air defense that can stop the various hypersonic missiles that Russia uses. So if Russia chose targets, every one of those targets would be destroyed. So no, I don't see them attacking Russia. Just don't see that happening. Another Rumble rant. Chocolate Boo says, thanks for educating me, Garland. You're doing great work. Thank you. Thank you, Chocolate Boo. Well, I've got a Chocolate Boo. I didn't even know that. How about that? All right, we got a couple more people on YouTube. Cobb fan says, recently rewatched a video of you and Gordon Dimmick from 4 years ago. This was where I first saw you. Interesting. Yeah, Gordon Dimmick. Yeah. You know, probably when I was in I hung out with him in London. So we were at his girlfriend's flat. All right. Sparkster says, globalists are pulling out all the stops, so there's nothing left for a plan B. Exactly. They're up against the wall, and it's starting to fall apart on them, and they're afraid they're going to lose to Trump, and it's all going to go down. The whole situation will fall to pieces. So, all right. I think that's it, everybody. That's the last one from the Sparkster. Gordon Dimmick. Yeah, I haven't checked his stuff out in a while. He used to be really good. And as I said, I hung out with him in London. He was great. I got to get back to London. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms. B, if you can, you see the stuff there with patreon.com. If you can afford Patreon, buy me a coffee is always great. You just go there, buy Garland a coffee. How much? $5. How many coffees? 1, 2, whatever, and boom. And if you want to, it's like Patreon now. You can, if you choose, instead of one time on Buy Me a Coffee, you can become a monthly subscriber, do your $5 or whatever dollars a month. How great is that? PayPal, you see everything going by. Cash App, you name it, all of it going. So if you can afford to help the channel, that's appreciated. If not, just share this on all your social media platforms. Have a nice day. Peace. I'm out.